Welcome to St. Peter on Galicantu, the most authentic site for the sufferings of Jesus here in Jerusalem. I am David Parsons, Senior Vice President and Spokesman for the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem. The Christian Embassy is considered the largest Christian Zionist organization in the world, in the sense that we have such a broad reach into about 180 some countries. We have branch offices and representatives in over 90 nations. We feel we're at the forefront of the whole Christian Zionist movement around the world today. I've been here in Jerusalem working with the Christian Embassy for 28 years, so almost 45 years of living in Israel or visiting and working full-time as a Christian advocate for Israel. I sensed from an early age, my early teens, a calling to Israel, that something about my life had to do with the restored nation of Israel. And as I pursued that calling in later years, I felt I needed to go to law school rather than seminary or some other training. I felt the legal training was very important to become an advocate for Israel. Since then, I've been ordained as a minister as well. I saw the Gulf War on television. It was the first war that was being broadcast live on CNN, people wearing gas masks because of the Scuds being fired from Iraq. And I just sensed it was time to leave my law practice and go full-time in trying to support Israel. And for the first 4 years, from 91 through 95, I actually moved to Washington, D.C., and became a registered lobbyist for Israel with a small Christian lobby for Israel, registered with Congress to speak on U.S.-Israel relations, how we could build stronger ties to Israel. I did the very first draft of the bill to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. It finally got through Congress in the fall of 95. That bill that we got passed that year then served as the basis for Donald Trump 22 years later in 2017, recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital and deciding to move the embassy there the following May. After the bill was passed in 95, I moved to Israel and started working with the Christian Embassy, and I've been here ever since. I love engaging with the Jewish people, with the people of Israel, who go through so much good, and yet so many challenges, and the war we've been in over the last year and a half, and also with Christians, in order to really do what I can to help nurture and grow and guard and protect this whole new relationship between Christians and Jews and Christian supporters of Israel and the people of Israel. It's a real joy to be involved in this sort of calling because I felt, I was born to do this, and if I was off doing something else, I would miss God's purpose for my life. In a normal year, there are several million Christians who visit Israel and take tours of the Bible sites, but sadly not all of them really see modern Israel. They just sort of look past it out the bus window and don't get engaged or connected to modern Israel, which is something of a biblical miracle in itself. And I think our ministry and my own callings to help connect Christians to what God is doing in Israel today, and not just the Bible sites here. They're important. They tell the story in the land of the Bible. The Bible becomes like a pop-up book here, where different sites just come alive when you're standing in that setting. But you can't come here and ignore the modern miracle of Israel. It's restoration despite all the odds. It is the hand of God, and it's something that should do something to our faith in the God who promised Abraham to bring the people back, to deliver this land as an everlasting possession. When we see God being faithful to promises he made by covenant oath 4,000 years ago, we as Christians should have our faith stirred and strengthened to believe that God will also be faithful to the covenant promises he made to us 2,000 years ago through Jesus. In my almost 30 years of living here in Jerusalem, I've had several times where I've had friends or acquaintances, people send folks to me who say, it's my last day in Israel, my only time to tour Jerusalem. What should I see? Where should you take me? And I always given that one day time frame to help these people understand. They want to know where Jesus walked and such. If you only have one day to see the biblical sites in Jerusalem connected to Jesus and the week of the Passion, I'm going to take you first to the Garden of Gethsemane in the Kidron Valley, just around the corner of the Temple Mount, where Jesus was praying in agony, as it were, great drops, sweating great drops of blood. This is where he was betrayed by Judas and arrested by some Roman soldiers and the temple guards and taken here. The next stop would be here at St. Peter and Galicantu, which means the crowing of the rooster. This is where Jesus was tried before the Sanhedrin and where Peter denied him 3 times before the rooster crowed. It's now a large Assumptionist church built on the site of a large Jewish villa where there's a prison under it and a courtyard outside that all match what the New Testament describes. It's a shame not more Christians visit this site, but it's an incredible place that tells all the elements of the story here, and then would go to the other side of the old city to the Garden Tomb. The Holy Sepulchre within the old city walls is nice, but the Garden Tomb is this beautiful natural setting that has all the elements of the story in this incredible setting where you have a place of crucifixion. Even the cliffside looks like a skull. Golgotha is the place of the skull, and right near it a large garden with a 1st century tomb where no one has been laid. It's an empty tomb that was discovered in a large garden with a large water cistern, the largest private water cistern in all of Jerusalem from that time, with a wine press and other elements, that it was a large garden, a tomb within it, that no one had been laid, that all fit the gospel descriptions. So those are my 3 go-to places in Jerusalem connected to those last days of Jesus when he was crucified, buried, and resurrected. But Galicantu, this middle site where Jesus was denied by Peter and was tried by the Sanhedrin, very few Christians visit it, and it may be the most authentic site in Jerusalem. I believe it is the most authentic place where you can stand where Jesus stood in the city, and I'd love to show this to everyone because sadly not enough Christians visit this place. What stands out about it, what authenticates it as the real place? First of all, you have an ancient set of steps leading from Mount Zion, what was then called the Essene Quarter, that goes down to the Kidron Valley over to, say, the Gethsemane area. And beside it, there's a side street, ancient steps from the 1st century, and a villa, a large villa that was large enough to be like an official residence. And we know it's Jewish because there are mikvahs there, ritual Jewish baths, and that means it was a Jewish villa, a large mansion with almost rooms large enough for official proceedings. And yet under it, there is a first century prison and then a water cistern under it. And what Jew living in a large house would have had a prison at the same time, first century, Second Temple era, under their home? It would have only been the high priest, which at the time was Caiaphas. And all the elements of the story of the denial of Jesus by Peter and his appearance before the Sanhedrin and even being beaten and mocked there, everything comes alive in this site like nowhere else in Jerusalem. It all comes alive, and you really get the sense Jesus stood in this place.
Imagine walking where Jesus walked, where faith comes to life. Feel the Bible story unfold around you, from the green Galilee to Jerusalem's ancient streets. Experience the serene and welcoming land of the Bible, where miracles happen. Put your heart where His footsteps are. Visit Israel.
The church here at St. Peter and Gallicantu was originally built in the 1920s, but restored in the 1990s. And it's quite an impressive place, very ornate, lovely stained glasses that tell a lot of the stories from the Gospels. It's built by a Catholic order known as the Assumptionists. They believe that the body of Mary was assumed into heaven, just like there's a Jewish tradition that the body of Moses was assumed into heaven. Of course, there is a Catholic order, they're Dormitionists. They have Dormition Abbey just up the hill on Mount Zion, where they believe Mary is asleep. But this Catholic order believes Mary was assumed into heaven. And but they built a very lovely church here with incredible acoustics. You can worship and sing in here, and it just echoes and has this wonderful audio sound throughout the church. Jesus had told Peter at the Last Supper that he would deny him before the rooster crowed, meaning before morning broke. And it happened, and Peter felt remorse, and then the rooster crowed, and the name of this place, St. Peter and Gallicantu, it means the place of the crowing of the rooster. This would have been the opening to the pit, the water cistern, several floors underground, even below the prison that's under this place. And there's Byzantine crosses carved in the entryway down here, which shows it was a place of pilgrimage or considered sacred, a place of worship in the Byzantine era in, say, 3rd, 4th, 5th centuries. As archaeologists dig throughout the land, if they find someone buried and their feet and head are facing east, it's probably a Christian burial site. If they're facing Jerusalem, it's Jewish. If they find a building of worship and the nave is facing east, it's Christian. If it's facing Jerusalem, it's Jewish. And one of the ways they can tell a place is Jewish is if there's mikvahs or ritual baths. They have a certain number of steps that you go down. You have to have running water and not stagnant water, so you're always refreshing the water. And here at Galicantu, at this big mansion, you have a mikvah, a traditional Jewish mikvah, showing and indicating that this was a Jewish home. In fact, as they dug in this area, they found several mikvahs, indicating that it was probably a place of Jewish ritual ceremonies, religious ceremonies, that the priests or the Sanhedrin may have been presiding over. So you could have these ritual baths for a lot of people, including for marriage. The bride has to dip. There's all sorts of occasions that you have to dip in a mikvah, and there were quite a few in this area around this large villa. The first element that was uncovered that authenticates the site of St. Peter and Gallicantu is this ancient set of stairwells, stone steps dating to the 1st century, leading from Mount Zion, which today we call it Mount Zion, the Dormition Abbey. There's Jewish, Christian, Muslims places all on Mount Zion. It's called that according to Christian tradition, but Mount Zion is actually the Temple Mount. In the 1st century, it was known as the Essene Quarter, which the Essenes, through the Dead Sea Scrolls, we now know them. There were Pharisees, Sadducees, Zealots, and the Essenes was a separate movement, but they had like a quarter, just as there's a Muslim, Armenian, Christian, Jewish quarters in the Old City. There was an Essene Quarter on what's today Mount Zion, and a main stairway leading down into the Kidron Valley, past the Gihon Spring, the original city of David, which they're still uncovering today, over towards Gethsemane. And this would have been where Jesus was led by the Roman soldiers and the temple guards from Gethsemane, where he was betrayed by Judas, up these steps. He probably went down them after the Last Supper, at the upper room on Mount Zion in the Essene Quarter, went down them to Gethsemane to pray, and he's led back up them to appear before the Sanhedrin. And off it, branching off of it, we have this set of stairs dating to the same time that opens into the courtyard of this unusual house, a large villa, a residence, office that was Jewish with mikvahs, but a prison underneath of it. Nothing like it found in Jerusalem to this day from that time period could match what we have here. The Bible in the Gospels, it speaks that outside the place where Jesus was tried by the Sanhedrin, there was a gathering of servants of the high priest and the Sanhedrin, and they're out there by what all the Gospels describe this, but the book of John specifically says there was a charcoal fire. As you come off the ancient steps, you enter a large courtyard outside this official residence, and here we have a place where a fire would have been built. You even have like a chimney for the smoke to rise at it. There were remnants of smoke. The Gospel of John uses the phrase charcoal fire in the Greek. It's quite interesting. This is where Peter would have been standing out by the fire. It was cold. It was like late March, early April here in Jerusalem. It's still cold at night. At that time, he was out there warming himself. He had followed Jesus as he had been arrested. He was following behind, and he's standing there, and this is where people start saying, hey, we know you're a follower of Jesus. We've seen you with him. And he starts saying, no, I don't know him. I don't know what you're saying. And he does this not once, not twice, but 3 times. In the end, they're confronting him in this courtyard, saying, you're a follower, you're with him. We even hear your Galilean accent. The people of Jerusalem could pick up on the accent, the dialect of the Jews of the Galilee. And he again, even cursing and swearing, says, no, I don't know him. And here you have a place where it looks like a fire pit with a chimney. Got a lovely crown of thorns growing here now, but you can actually see where the smoke would have risen. Jesus looked at Peter on the 3rd time he denied him. They could see each other. Somehow Jesus inside the building, but enough open windows that he looked at Peter, and Peter went off weeping bitterly. And what's interesting is that after his resurrection, the Gospel of John says that in the Galilee, Peter and the other followers had gone back to fishing. They were originally fishermen from the Sea of Galilee. And they were there fishing again, and Jesus meets them on the shore, fixes them breakfast fish, offers them fried fish for breakfast, and he asks Peter 3 times, Peter, do you love me? And Peter says, yes. Will feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? 3 times, just as Peter had denied him 3 times, that Jesus restored relationship with him 3 times. Do you love me? Peter said, yes, you know I love you. Then feed my sheep. And the Gospel of John says that this happened beside a charcoal fire. It's the only place in the Greek New Testament where that phrase is used, in this courtyard in Jerusalem at the house of the high priest Caiaphas, and when Jesus restored Peter up in the Galilee. And a very interesting, deliberate connection by the writer of the Gospel of John to this moment where Peter denied Jesus, but also was restored sitting at a charcoal fire up on the Sea of Galilee.
I will bless those who bless you, God promised Abraham. Embrace this covenant by connecting with the people of Israel. From Jerusalem's stones to Galilee's shores, experience living faith through their traditions and hospitality. Your journey is more than visiting biblical sites. It's about hearts that welcome your friendship. Your presence matters. Discover Israel.
What really gives this site authenticity and makes it unique in all of Jerusalem in the 1st century is that under this big villa, this mansion with mikvah, so it's a Jewish home, residence slash office, let's say, is that underneath of it there is a prison. And we know it's a prison because you can see notches, holes cut in the bedrock where people were chained. Here you would have been chained low. Over there is one high. You would have been put on a short chain and you couldn't sit down or lay down. You were having to stand all the time. And what's really unique here is that you have a couple holes over this mantle where someone would have been stretched out and scourged, whipped here, and it all dates to the 1st century. Scholars and archaeologists have all agreed that this is a 1st century underground prison that happens to be under a large Jewish home, which could only have been the high priest and where the Sanhedrin convened from time to time. And in this part of this large underground prison, You have a window to be able to look down into what was a water cistern but turned into another part of the prison, a pit where after you were scourged, perhaps you were lowered down into it. You had wounds. There was water, stagnant water. Your wounds would get infected if you laid down. You had to stand. You were weakened from the scourging, but you were lowered in there and isolated. Usually there's long lines of pilgrims coming down and trying to leave. You only have a few minutes each time to stand in here. If you're lowered into this pit, you're around 3 floors underground, and you were lowered through the hole. There's Byzantine crosses up in that area. It would have been sealed off. And it's a lonely place to be here, feeling like the belly of the earth. And this is how the psalmist starts describing it, as if you're already in the grave. You're a dead man walking. The Catholic custodians of St. Peter and Galicantu have provided this stone pulpit for the Christian groups that visit here, and there's the books open in different languages to the Psalm chapter 88.
Welcome to the Arugot Farm. My name is Jeremy Gimpel, and you have arrived in the heart of Judea at the edge of Jewish settlement in the land of Israel. Welcome.
This was, for me, it is the most authentic spot in all of Jerusalem of the whole story of Jesus, the week of the Passion, the things that he suffered for us as Christians here in this pit and on this site at Galicantu.